But now let's get the government's response. As you can see, I'm joined by the Business and Trade Secretary Jonathan Reynolds. Very good to see you, Mr.
Good morning.
Thanks so much for joining us. Siobhan just framed it there. The EU put in the sin bin. Where are we?
Well, look, I recognise the announcements by the President last night put the UK in a relatively better position than, for instance, the EU. But to be clear, any imposition of trade barriers, tariffs in this case, between the UK and a major market like the US is a disappointment to me. My job is to remove barriers. I don't want to see those put in place. So, of course, I'm pleased the UK is in a better position than other countries, but I'm not satisfied. The job is not done. Our engagement that we have had with the US has been important. We're going to continue that. We should be aiming for, and I am, a position that not only avoids the imposition of additional barriers on the UK, but actually removes them. It deepens and strengthens what is already a strong relationship as it stands. So that's my job this morning, and my engagement with business, my work with the US is to deliver that.
I mean, when we snapshot what effect this is going to have, it will have a direct effect on the UK economy, but also an indirect, perhaps even more significant effect on the economy when you consider a 54% tariff on China, the two biggest engines of world growth being hit incredibly hard. Might this cause a recession?
Well, look, this is a very substantial change to global trading patterns. This government in the UK, our plan for change is about giving people economic security. So I'm going to have to take, and I will, any measures that we need to protect the UK from that wider impact as best we can. So, for instance, we already had an announcement on tariffs on steel and aluminium. We already have in place safeguards that ensure there are quotas in place, that there are additional tariffs, 25% in our case, to make sure we're not flooded with goods that would have come to other countries that are now going to come to the UK. So we're willing to do that. We'll take any powers we need to protect the British people and the British economy from that. What we have directly within our power alongside that is, of course, the ability to negotiate a better deal in the national interest for the UK. That's been our approach to date, and we'll continue with that.
Yeah, I guess separate from what it does to the UK itself, I mean, if these tariffs persist, whether people reciprocate or not, the global economy, it might not be UK specific, but we'd be caught up, is probably heading for a recession.
Look, I wouldn't want to speculate on the outcome. This is very clearly a significant set of announcements from the US. I would say when I look at the work that we've been able to do with the US so far, of course I'm negotiating in the UK's national interest there. I hope perhaps if we are successful there would be a template there for other countries to resolve some of these issues. There's a set of complaints from the US about how some of the current global trading arrangements work. They won't get their own way on all of that. But there are some things to talk about. If the US is the world's #1 customer, they do want to be treated like that, and that's very much the relationship between China and America is considered in that lens. But what we can do here in the UK is navigate the best path for ourselves, for working people in the UK. That's what we're doing, and I do hope there's a chance to take some lessons from that if we are successful for the wider world economy.
Scott Bessent, the Treasury Secretary, said yesterday, I wouldn't try to retaliate. As long as you don't retaliate, this is the high end of the number. Talking about all countries there. What do you take from that?
Well, look, we in the UK will take any action we need to give ourselves the tools that we need to respond to announcements of this kind. There's some formal steps we need to take, particularly the evidence you ask for from business that comes into the Department of Business and Trade, and we can base decisions upon that. Whilst we have a chance of making the relationship between the UK and the US even stronger than it is, the message I get very strongly from business is remain at the table, don't overreact, stick with the calm-headed approach the UK government has had to date, and we're going to do that. But we can't rule anything out because, again, we've got to make decisions for no one else other than the United Kingdom.
I mean, it sounds like the way out of this for the UK, oddly, when you're sort of on the defensive, is a free trade deal, which has been elusive for some time. We talk a lot about what is and isn't on the table for negotiation. Is food standards on the table as a potential negotiating piece as well?
Well, look, you know I'm not going to go into the details of a sensitive negotiation. The Labour government has a very clear manifesto position to maintain what is called our SPS regime. That's the basic rules around food and agriculture. That's important to us. Of course, that manifesto position is what we would base that around. But we should also remember, as it stands, the UK is the biggest importer in Europe of American agriculture, the goods that do comply with our existing food standards. So there's already a strong relationship there that, of course, we can build upon.
In terms of the wins and losses, as it were, all relative, obviously, rather than absolute today, these tariffs from the US are just on physical goods. Is that right? Because if so, again, in a relative sense, most of what we do with the US is services, is financial services. So do you see that as a win?
Well, we do have an incredible services economy in the UK, a brilliant services exporter. We shouldn't, however, neglect the fact that advanced manufacturing in particular is a very successful part of our economy as well. We, for instance, have a tremendous trade with the US on automotive vehicles, so that specific tariff for that sector, that is a specific concern of mine and some work that we need to do around that. The President has always been very concerned about the deficits the US has on manufactured goods with the EU, with China, and we don't have that. So we've been able to base our conversations on that existing strong relationship, but there is more to do. That's what we're going to continue doing because we've got to get the right result for the UK.
So some bigger picture questions for you as Business Secretary over the coming years, given what's happened over the last couple of months, not just yesterday. Does it change your view as to the type of economy that we need to be? We've clearly drastically altered our defence policy, trying to be more self-sufficient in light of world changes. Do we have to change our industrial policy? Do we have to be in a position in 5 or 10 years where, as a nation, if necessary, we're sort of self-sufficient?
Well, look, I wouldn't put it as being self-sufficient because we are an open trading economy. Trade's a much bigger percentage of our economy than it is on a relative basis for the US. Now, we do need a better industrial policy, industrial strategy. That's what I'm already committed to as Business Secretary, because if you look at the decline of the foundation industries in the UK, if you look at how vulnerable we are in some of our supply chains, you saw that in the pandemic, you saw that after Ukraine, we've got to have more of a focus to make sure actually the economy works for all parts of the UK where there are different strengths in different regions of the UK. I want it to work for every part of the UK, so we need that different policy. But being an open trading nation is really important to our prosperity. And so my work is not just about what we're doing with the US, but how supporting the team who are working on the EU reset. It's our trade negotiations with India, with the Gulf, where I want the UK to be positioned in this challenging global environment as the best place to be based to do business, no matter where your major market is.
I wanted to ask you about the fiscal rules, because the Chancellor has been clear that they are ironclad, but equally, that was probably in the previous world. I wonder whether there is a world-changing excuse to change the fiscal rules. In the pandemic, the fiscal rules were abandoned temporarily. I mean, if these tariffs, this scale of tariffs, particularly around the world, not just the 10% on the UK, persist, and we really do head for a global recession, is that grounds to rethink things like the fiscal rules?
No, I don't think it is. I think the fiscal rules are the foundation stone for the economic and political security the British people need. When we saw from previous Prime Ministers, Liz Truss, for instance, an arbitrary approach to that, we saw the consequences of that. So when I am negotiating with the US, that's partly about maintaining that economic security, but something like the fiscal rules and the work of the Chancellor, rebuilding the headroom that she has, that we inherited from the Conservative Party after the election, that is an integral part of providing that security as well. It's not about, oh, the world's changed, I want to do things a little bit differently. It's a recognition of where the UK is at and that discipline that is required to keep us in the right space.
2 quick final questions. Presumably you'll be updating Parliament on all this today.
You know, MPs can't announce, only the Speaker can announce that, but of course I'm always seeking to keep colleagues informed.
Oh, do we know what time?
I don't know that time, no.
But the Speaker, you requested this from the Speaker and you'll get given a schedule?
We're not technically supposed to disclose that on Sky News on the morning, but of course I want to keep all members of Parliament informed of our work.
We will keep our live feed of Parliament up and running, and no doubt we'll see your face there again a bit later today. Just final question from me. Anthony Albanese, the Australian leader, taking a similar approach to us, not imposing reciprocal tariffs, trying to be conciliatory towards the US, but even he has said this overnight: this is not the act of a friend. Do you agree with that? Is it hard to call America still a friend?
America is a friend. America is our principal ally. Our relationship is an incredibly strong economic one, but also a security one, a political one as well. So I understand some of the concerns that actually do exist on both sides of the political divide in the US about the impact of trade policy, of economic policy on some parts of America over the last few decades. And I think you've got to engage with that. We might not agree and don't agree with all of these decisions, but we've got to understand where they're coming from. And when you have that, you have the basis, I believe, for a constructive conversation that will get the best for the UK.
Jonathan Reynolds, great to see you as always. Thanks for stopping by. The Business Secretary, who probably will be in Parliament later today, updating the House on some of the details we were just lucky enough to hear first.